The lights in the studio felt colder than usual. They did not warm the skin, they exposed it. Everything was too bright, too sharp, like a room holding its breath. Karoline Leavitt sat still, back straight, eyes locked on the man across from her, Robert De Niro, the icon, the legend, and now the man trying to keep control of a secret that was rotting beneath the surface. He looked older than she remembered, not just aged, but worn, the kind of tire that makeup could not fix. His fingers tapped against the glass of water in front of him, a soft, nervous rhythm. Viewers watching from home probably did not notice it, but Karoline noticed everything. The twitch at the corner of his mouth, the way his jaw clenched every time her eyes met his. The host's voice faded into background noise. It no longer mattered who asked the questions. This moment had taken on a life of its own. One slip, one sentence, and the world would shift. Karoline leaned forward. Her voice did not shake. It did not rise. It landed like a quiet explosion. Tell them the truth, Robert. Tell them what you did in 1993. The words floated through the air, heavy and direct, the kind of sentence that rearranges a room. De Niro froze. His hands stopped midair. His lips parted, but no sound came. The silence that followed was louder than any applause. The camera zoomed in. A bead of sweat ran down his temple. He looked at her not with anger, but with fear, real, naked fear, and in that pause, the world saw it. This was not a debate. This was not politics. This was a reckoning, and it had just begun. Karoline's words still echoed in her own mind long after they left her mouth. But she did not flinch. The silence from De Niro was enough. It was the beginning of a storm she had waited 2 years to unleash. 2 years since that closed door fundraiser. The memory stayed sharp. Lavish lights, clinking glasses, whisper power games behind every smile. She had stood out, not because she tried to, but because she believed in something. A system that could still be clean, a name that could still mean something. He had noticed her that night, not as a celebrity scanning the crowd, but as a man seeing someone who reminded him of who he used to be, or maybe just someone he could use. You're the voice of the future, he had said, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder. His words had felt warm then, encouraging. She had believed him, defended him in rooms where his name made others roll their eyes. Back then, she saw him as a mentor, a symbol of change. She was wrong. Months later, in the chaos of campaign files and forgotten archives, she found it, a folder buried in an old digital archive. Records, emails, documents from 1993, a production in Southeast Asia. His name at the center, not just as an actor, but as a man who silenced people with money and buried pain with legal threats. There were allegations, a local actress, barely of age, a private meeting that turned into something darker. Documents hinted at coercion, messages showed settlements. It had been cleaned up with precision, covered so well that even the media never got close. Karoline read every line in silence, and something inside her shifted. She remembered thinking, this is not just about him. This is about all of them. Since then, their relationship was a wall of silence. No public interactions, no private messages, but at every event where he spoke about justice, about standing with women, her rage grew louder. He had called her the voice of the future. Now, she would make sure his past had a voice too, and she would not whisper it. She would scream it on the loudest stage. She walked out of that room with fire in her chest. Not confidence, not pride. It was heavier than that. The kind of weight that came from carrying truth others refused to touch. The next day, it arrived, a plain brown envelope, no return address. Inside were sealed court records, stamped and signed. The case had been buried, but someone wanted it unearthed. She read each page twice. A deposition, a payout, non-disclosure agreements, a judge's signature, a young woman's testimony so detailed it made her stomach twist. Karoline sat alone, staring at her shaking hands, and just like that, it was not just a theory anymore. It was real, but real came with danger. A producer she trusted pulled her aside. Quiet voice, darting eyes. Listen to me. This is not a fight you want. He is too big. He has people everywhere, even her mother, always proud of her. Whispered over the phone, honey, be smart. There are battles that ruin lives, but silence was no longer an option. That week, he called her. Not through lawyers, not through managers. He called her himself. Karoline, he said, voice calm. To calm, I hear you've been looking into some old stories. Dangerous game. She said nothing. You know, he continued, you've got promise. I always said that. You could still have a real future. Or, a pause. You could end up like the rest of them, forgotten. She ended the call, but the war had started. He tried to be charming after that. Public smiles, private emails. A bouquet of white roses sent to her office with a handwritten note. Let's not throw away something powerful. She burned the note. Then came the gaslighting. Quiet interviews where he called her young and confused, told press she was chasing headlines. One quote stuck with her: she is a passionate kid. But she does not understand how these things worked out. Her mind spiraled. What if he was right? She stopped trusting people, turned off her phone for days, wrote in her journal at night. Long entries full of self-doubt and rage, recorded voice memos to herself, whispering, do not let them turn this into noise. This matters. Then, the leak. A text thread between her and a confidant got out. She called him a fraud, accused him of using progress as a mask. It went viral. The press twisted her words. Headlines mocked her. She could have apologized, backed away, played the victim, but she did not. One night, as she sat curled on the edge of her couch, a call came in. It was Noah, someone she had not spoken to in years, a friend from college, once more than a friend, before politics swallowed them both. Karoline, he said, I was there, in Manila. I saw what happened. You are not crazy, she cried. After that call, not because of what he said, but because it meant she had to keep going. The network called it a debate, slotted it for primetime. But Karoline knew what it really was. It was not a debate. It was war. The red live sign blinked above the camera. The countdown hit 0. Karoline steadied her breath as the host introduced them. His voice a neutral mask trying to hide the tension. Studio lights bore down on her skin, but she didn't flinch. The world was watching now, millions of eyes, waiting to see who would fall first. Robert De Niro sat across from her, perfectly tailored in his charcoal suit, hair combed back like the scandal hadn't touched him. He leaned back, smiling like he'd already won. So, he said, his tone dipped in mockery, this is what passes for journalism now, just another pretty face with a script and a grudge. She didn't blink. I'm not here to be pretty, Mr. De Niro, she replied, voice steady. I'm here to be precise. There was a stillness, a beat. Then, without ceremony, she placed the folder on the desk between them. He glanced at it, dismissed it. What is that supposed to be? Fan fiction. She opened the folder slowly, exposing documents marked confidential. The papers rustled softly, but the weight they carried was thunderous. These are signed settlements from 3 individuals, she said clearly, witness testimonies, wire transfers, a video file from the 1993 production shoot in Manila. The victim's own voice, verified by 2 independent legal experts. His jaw stiffened. You're bluffing. She didn't flinch. I'm not. His mask cracked. You think you're some moral compass? He hissed, his voice rising. You're nothing, just another self-righteous kid with a savior complex, the audience murmured. The host shifted uncomfortably, sensing the air changed. Then he snapped, F***K this. He slammed his mic onto the desk, the sound echoing through the broadcast. The screech of feedback made viewers at home wince. He ripped off his earpiece and threw it behind him, stormed off camera, shoving a staged hand on the way out. The camera stayed on Karoline. She didn't move, didn't gloat, didn't smile. She just looked straight into the lens and said, silence protects the powerful. I won't. Gasps rippled across the studio. By the time the screen cut to commercial, Twitter had already exploded. Clips of his meltdown were spreading like wildfire. The world had just watched a man unravel and a woman stand taller. The next morning, headlines blazed like wildfire. De Niro implodes on live TV from powerhouse to pariah. Karoline brought him down. But at what cost? Within 48 hours, Robert De Niro vanished from public life. No statements, no sightings, just silence. His official accounts went dark. PR firms distanced themselves. Former allies scrambled to rewrite their proximity to him. And then came the documentary's grainy footage, testimonies from forgotten voices, unsettling replays of old interviews that now looked chilling in hindsight. Karoline watched it unfold, not from the spotlight, but from a quiet apartment 2 towns over. Her phone never stopped buzzing calls from publishers, podcast offers, film producers, all dangling fame like a prize. She declined them all. She hadn't wanted fame. She wanted answers. And now she wasn't sure what she had. The doorbell rang. Her driver waited downstairs. She was going to meet her. The woman from the Manila tape. The one who cracked everything open with a trembling voice and tired eyes. They sat on a park bench, wrapped in coats and silence. I never thought anyone would believe me, the woman said quietly. Karoline reached for her hand. I did. Tears shimmered, but neither let them fall. Back home, Karoline sat at her father's kitchen table, the same place where she'd once announced she was taking on De Niro. Her father poured coffee, slid the mug toward her. You did something no one else dared to. She looked at him, exhaustion etched deep into her face. Did I do it for the truth or for revenge? He didn't answer right away. Then, with a calm stare, he said, that question will haunt you longer than any threat, and you've made enemies now, real ones. The kind that never forget. Karoline looked out the window. The storm had passed, but the damage lingered, and she wasn't sure if she'd ever sleep the same again. Snowflakes drifted in slow spirals, settling gently on Karoline's coat as she walked down the quiet street. Her breath formed fleeting clouds in the cold air, each step muffled by the powder beneath her boots. At the corner, a newsstand stood, its front page catching her eye. Fall of a giant. De Niro's face, pale and sunken, stared back like a ghost of what once was. Her gaze lingered. Asked her sometimes, truth isn't the end of the story, it's just the beginning of isolation. And yet, silence would have been worse. She turned away, walking on. Asked her if she didn't destroy a man. She exposed a mirror, and most people didn't like what they saw in it.